Hello and welcome to 3 Minute Gaming. I'm Nathan, and today I'm going to tell you if this game's worth your time and bandwidth. Today's game is Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen. Part open world CRPG, part JRPG, part action game, and with plenty of jank, Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen may be a cult classic, but is it worth playing in 2023? Let's find out. Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen is a definitive edition of the original Dragon's Dogma for modern systems and PC, and is a semi-open world action RPG with an emphasis on its pawn party system, flashy combat, and unique mechanics. The game starts with you basically having the worst day ever as a god dragon shows up to your village, eats your heart, and basically says, if you want it back, train up and kill me. So yeah, you're gonna do that. The story is very golden age arc of Berserk, all the way down to more than a few direct references, though honestly I never found any of the plot points particularly compelling. It does go from 1 to 1,000 in the last quarter though, with an absolutely nuts ending that's worth seeing through. The main gameplay in Dragon's Dogma is around exploration and combat, with you having access to 9 vocations from within 3 systems, Ranger type, Warrior, and Mage, as well as some hybrids. Gaining discipline points lets you unlock moves, with 6 equipable at a time except for the Warrior, as well as passives which are cross-discipline. Abilities are the core of combat, often tied to the weapons you use, and synergizing them with both optimal gear and passives is engaging. You won't be a one-man army though, at least not early on, so you'll need a pawn to help you. Pawns are basically AI-controlled sidekicks which can access the same moves and passive as you, and can be used to fill gaps in your roster. You have one pawn that you create and own, but can recruit up to 2 others from other actual players, and having your pawn used powers it up as incentive. The pawn system is frankly genius. Pawns not only gain levels, they learn about enemy weaknesses by fighting them, quests by doing them, areas by exploring them, and how to engage by watching you. They aren't geniuses or anything, but knowing that you're molding your perfect sidekick is incredibly engaging. Combat is a blast as well. You have the aforementioned 6 skills, but you also have a dedicated grab button, which in the case of smaller enemies can be used to restrain them or pick them up and lob them off cliffs, while with larger enemies you climb all over them, Shadow of the Colossus style, to target weak points. The loop itself is very basic, with you doing main and side quests that move you throughout the open world, though honestly the world isn't really that big, and also only really has 3 or 4 linear-esque pathways to new zones that you'll need to keep track of. Quests are pretty basic as well, ranging from escort missions to going somewhere to fight stuff to, well, honestly, that's most of the missions, but that's fine. There's a ton more I could say about Dragon's Dogma, but this review is going to be too long anyway, so suffice to say this is an open world-esque RPG with an emphasis on its combat, party creation, and character builds. So what do I like about Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen? Well, combat is exceptionally good, with the climbing, learning elemental damage, and mastering a whole slew of moves to succeed engaging throughout. Additionally, the 3 types of classes do play genuinely uniquely from each other, making the excellent combat feel refreshed if you ever decide to change from, say, Warrior to Mage, and finding the one class that fits how you want to play is a joy. And lastly, as mentioned, the pawn system is genius, to the point where I'm surprised other games haven't stolen it, with me obsessing over creating the ultimate party easily one of my favorite parts of the entire game. When it comes to the bad, this game is janky as all hell. In so many ways, I can't even mention them all. The UI is whack, the tutorial isn't nearly robust enough, side quest paths completely close out just by playing through the story, and more. You have to look past a lot of rough edges to enjoy this game. Additionally, the game's limited number of enemies really gets repetitive, especially since endgame enemies usually end up just being the same ones you fought before with more health and damage. And lastly, the exploration isn't nearly as open as you might think, with the world being pretty closed off and there being less than a dozen side dungeons or areas to truly explore outside of the main quest. As you know, I rate games here on a 3-point scale. Must play, maybe consider, and don't bother. And I have a confession. I have started this game maybe 5 times across different systems, and I always abandoned it pretty early on. This time I told myself I'd play until either I got it or it became completely intolerable, and guess what? Once I got past the hump, I found it to be one of the most addicting, engaging, and genuinely interesting action RPGs I've ever played. Is it flawed? Absolutely. It's rougher than sandpaper. But once you get past that stuff, there's a fantastic diamond of a game here, unlike anything I've ever played. I cannot wait to see what they do with the sequel. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. If you played Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen, did you give up on it early like me? Or have you played through it and you love it? Please let me know in the comments. But regardless, make sure you go out there and play it.